So hello and welcome to another video, and as always I'm keen, I'm excited to get going. It's a new lake for me, this one. I'm back at Huntingdon Racecourse and I've never fished Albury Lake, which is situated behind me at the moment. Now this lake, it's 9 acres in size with depths up to 40 foot, and there's around about 300 fish out there, which when there was stock there was all around C3s, and a lot of them are, you know, are high doubles to mid 20s now, but we'll touch on that in more detail as we go along. I've got quite a lot to do to find, you know, feature finding out there. In general, from what I can gather, people tend to fish in close on this water with it being so deep, so I've got a lot to contend with, let's put it that way. I don't think it's going to be easy, although if you get it right it can be a bit of a runs water, this place. It's a little bit of a social as well. I've got my son Rylan with me on this occasion. I had Alfie last time, and this time Rylan's come, and no doubt he's going to give me a hand pulling some of them fish in. Hopefully we'll get a big bad Barry. If not, you know, at least I've got an extra helping hand with a camera. He's quite pleasant to have, this one with me, as opposed to the last one, Alfie. He was a bit of a nightmare, which we'll touch on that in a bit more detail as we progress. But for now, let's get some features found, let's get some rods fishing, and then I'll cover everything in a lot more detail. Well, I just sat down to speak to the camera to say that the rods was out fishing, and the rod was away straight away. I can't believe it. We've got a nice little scaly mirror to show you. He's just gone 13 pound too, and he absolutely took off like a steam train. Well, he's tensing up, but there you go, look. Little football, angry mirror. Yes, I quite like him. Short and fat, just like my missus. That's what I always keep saying. Mwah. And there's the other side, look, he's got quite a distinctive marking in the centre there. Yes, definitely recognise this fish if we had him again. Let's hope they get bigger and there's more to come. If a start is anything to go by, it's looking very promising. Well, that was a quick start and it was quite unexpected, I tell you. But from the walk round this morning, this was the only swim where I seen a couple of fish show. Mind you saying that, I did see one fish down on the wind as well. But I'm sort of central to the lake here, and Tony said to me that he put some pellets out in this swim a couple of days ago. So that might be why I seen them fish showing here. It might not be. And when Tony feeds the fish here, he just goes round with a scoop and just scoops them in. So the fish do tend to be in close rather than further out. But anyway, leading up to what I've done on this session, initially I went out there with the deeper and I was trying to locate a road that comes across an old road which is out there. I didn't actually locate it. Apparently it comes up from 24 foot, comes up onto 17 foot and then drops back down again. But I had a good few casts out there and I couldn't locate that road, so maybe it sort of fizzles out before it gets here, I'm not too sure. But that said, what I did pick up on the deeper, there was a lot of fish in close. I picked up probably about 10 fish or so, and it was all on the marginal slope. And quite often when you get deep lakes like this and there's not much features out there, I mean, to be honest, it is fairly uniform other than this road that runs across. The margin does become the biggest feature, and certainly from the way that Tony's been feeding the fish in here, you know, them fish are just going to hug that marginal shelf. It is a really big feature. It's not a real steep drop off, it's quite a gradual drop off. So where I've got the rods positioned, I've got one on the shelf in 10 foot of water, and then I've got one just down the shelf which is in 13 foot of water, and the rod that I just had the bite on is literally just at the bottom of the shelf. That's in 17 foot of water. Now all three of the rods are fishing at 4 1/4 wraps. That's not intended, but it is making life easier when it comes to baiting up and keeping everything, you know, I don't have to keep rewrapping the spod and things like that. It has made it simplistic, so to speak of, but it wasn't intentional, it was just how it turned out. Now what I've actually found out there, I found clay out there. As I was having a lead after I'd sort of marked the zones up, I wrapped it up and then I went out with a lead on all 3 spots just to make sure that it was a clear bottom. There's a little bit of Canadian here and there, but nothing, you know, that's going to cause me any problems, and it's mostly clay that I'm fishing over. There's some sort of like muddy, it's like a muddy clay. There is a bit of grit in it as well. It's like a dark coloured clay. It's not that real bright white clay coloured stuff anyway. I could see that on the lead after I'd had a lead around. So really I could have gone out with any old rig on that bottom, but the rig that I've gone out on, I'm actually going all 3 on solid bags, and because I don't want to be dropping the leads because it could potentially be quite a busy session this, I'm actually using the stems, I think they're from Bank Tackle, them stems that I'm using. Just makes life easier, so I can still do the loop to loop method, but it's on a stem. And I'm just not dropping the leads. If I do start to get it, it's the first time I've used these stems, so I don't know if they're any good. I've heard rumours of, you know, them opening up and things like that, but so far so good. We'll have to see on that. And the old rig front, very, very simple. I've got a Corda size 6 wide gape. I don't know if that's going to zoom in okay, but I will get some close-ups anyway. And then I've got a 15mm pop-up on there, and I've got a BB shot, and it's about 10mm away from where the hook eye is. so it will sit up just like that. I do prefer that method when I'm using a solid bag. I like to think that the way I tie the bag up with the bait at the bottom of the bag, as soon as that bag disperse, it just sort of sits up and hovers above the free offerings that you've got in the bag. It's about 4 inches long, and that is the PB product silk wire. I really do like that material. It's very supple, it's thin in diameter, and not only that, once it takes the water on, it does tend to hug the bottom a lot better than most supple braid materials what I've used in the past. So yes, and that's a 4-ounce lead on there, so it is going to wallop that hook in. So yes, very, very simple. I'm just using the loop method onto the main line, looping the bag straight on there, and with doing that as well, it means that I can wrap up without having to lay the bag on the floor or put a towel on the floor if it's been raining or whatever. So I can still wrap the rods up even if it's chucking it down, and then sneak that bag on and get the bag out there. Now bait wise, what I've gone out there with 10mm and 15mm. They're both in the LM94, and I've also used the feed pellets which Tony feeds the fish here. Now what I did do is I started the breakdown process at home long before this session. I started prepping a good 3-4 days ago, and what I did do is I just got all the boilies and all the pellets into a bucket, and I tipped a full bottle of the LM94 food syrup on there. And over the course of the past 3 days, I've just been turning them around. Some of the pellets have really broke down, and it's created a bit like a ground bait sort of texture. Some of them are still whole, and I did add a few more this morning, so it's got different breakdown times between them. I don't want them just to hit the water and disperse, but that is ideally why I wanted to glug them up as well, because it gets that glug right down onto the lake bed. And if anything, that works for you, it works for a lot longer rather than just coating the pellets in. I think a lot of the time, if you just coat the pellets and then bang them straight out there, most of it's washed off before it even gets to the lake bottom. This way, it's a lot slower disperse that comes off the pellets, and if anything, I think it keeps the drawing the fish in for a longer period, or at least that's my thinking behind my madness anyway. And my solid bag mix, I've got 3 different types of pellet in there this time, and I've also got crumbed up LM94 in there as well. I've got the isolate 2mm pellets. They're a halibut pellet, a lot slower breakdown, and they're a lot higher oil content than pellet. And then I've also got some dynamite pellets in there, a really fast breakdown pellet that absorbs everything that you put into it really. And then I've used some of Tony's pellets as well. And then what I have done, because Tony's pellets are quite a 6mm and they're quite big in diameter, I actually started prepping them pellets a good few weeks ago. And what I wanted to do was to get all that LM94 food syrup into the mix, get it so it's a real sticky mix to begin with, and then over the course of a week or so, you keep turning it, eventually it becomes a dry mix, but everything is softened up. And then what I have done is I've put the whole lot through the Ridge Monkey Crusher, give it a good old wind round just to break some of them bigger pellets down, and not only that, with the boilie crumb in there as well, so we've got powders and everything as well. And because it is such a deep lake this, and the water temperature at the moment is hovering around 22, that's a surface temperature, that is, by the way, but because of that, I've gone in on the slow melt solid bags. If anything, I want to make sure that bag gets down there, and especially as I didn't know which swim I was going to be pitching up into, I wanted to make sure that I could get down in 40 foot of water if I needed to. So that is where we're up to, and that is what I've done. I'm feeling very positive about the session. It's always nice to get a fish straight away, but I hope for one of them bigger ones, I really do. There is some original fish in here, some unknown fish, and nobody has caught any of them yet. There is still tickets available on this lake as well, so I am going to cover the lake in more detail. We'll have a catch up in a bit, and not only that, I've got a bit to talk about what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. So yes, stay tuned, and I shall speak to you very shortly. So a few hours have passed now, and we've just had tea. We've just had southern fried chicken and chips, and we absolutely smashed that to bits. But as always happens to me, seems to be a regular occurrence, I always get a bite whilst I'm cooking tea or eating tea, and this time the right hand rod absolutely picked up, ripped off, but by the time I'd turned the gas off and got to the rod, it had stopped, so I would have had an aborted take on that rod. I should have been on the rod a bit quicker, but these things happen. Anyway, I've got a little bit of a top tip for you here. You can chuck all your fancy bait out the window and all your singing, all dancing rigs. This is what you need to do. You need to pay the lake. So Rylan, what you got there in your hand? He's got a penny, and he's going to head down to the water, he's going to pay the lake, chuck it in and make a wish, and we'll see if that happens. I'm not going to get him to tell me what he wishes for. At the end of the session, we'll see if it comes true or not. So, let's go pay the lake. Well, here we go then. This one was the left hand rod, so that's a bite on all three rods now. The spots are rocking, and I think it's worth mentioning that I've not gone in heavy. I've gone out with 6 spoms of bait over each rod, and what I'm doing is I'm just feeding to the bites. And you may have noticed that I'm using the spom to bait up with, even though I'm only fishing close in, but I want to keep everything tight and compact. If I was to scoop it and throw it like that, you know, it's going to spread it in a wider area, and because I want to use minimal amount of bait and try and capitalize on bites, that is why I'm using the spom. Anyway, this one went off like an absolute steam train, and you would have, if you'd have lost it, you'd have thought it was a lot bigger, because it absolutely steamed off, and I mean steamed off. I'm surprised. And it's just gone at £12 14 ounce. But again, it's another little scaly banger. You don't mind catching small fish when they look like this, do you? Well, I certainly don't anyway. And the bigger fish will come. I'm sure one of them 20s is not too far away. And there's quite a few in here. We're quite unlucky that we're getting amongst these smaller ones, but nonetheless, it's another bite. It's another fish on the tally, and another LM94 victim. And there's the other side. Lovely jubbly. Let's slip him straight back and see if we can't make something else happen. If anything, it does look like we're in for a few bites this afternoon, because I've seen a couple of fish show in the area as well. Mwah. So good evening, and darkness has set upon us fairly quickly. We are on bivvy cam at the moment. I've had to get all the lights out just to get this footage before we turn in for the night. We did have another fish just on darkness as well, a little fully scaled. Here's the footage of that one now. So yes, just a little fella, that one, estimated around £6 or £7, and with the darkness kicking in I couldn't be bothered faffing around with the camera and that, so I just got a little bit of footage but as I was slipping it back. I am told that it is good for a night bite in here, stroke early morning, so hopefully, you know, we are awoken a few times and fingers crossed for one of them better fish. But if anything, I am quite confident in how we are fishing. Everything is going to plan and we are getting through the bait now. Feeding to the bites definitely seems to be working. I mean, that's 3 fish we've had now and 1 aborted take, you know, so 4 takes we've had. And you know, we're not even 12 hours into the session yet, so all is looking rather good. Fingers crossed for them big uns though. I know I keep saying it, but there's quite a few 20s in this water, and I'd like to get a few for the camera and show you just what scaly bangers are in here. But you know, I'm doing my best and I'm sure they'll come. If anything, I shall certainly try my best for you. But for now, let's take a look back to a couple of weeks ago where I was actually back down here and I was fishing Heron Lake. Now this session was all about bringing my youngest son Alfie with me. He's never been night fishing, so to speak, with me, so that session was all about him really. The camera and the fishing did take a little bit of a backseat on this session, but we did catch one, although it was a tricky session. We fished in the wreck swim, and in the wreck swim on Heron Lake there's a sunken boat that's out there. We fished one out towards that, and the other 2 rods was fishing in the margins. I had one fishing next to some lily pads, which is quite a known area for the original fish to hang about in, and incidentally that was the rod that did me the bite. It wasn't a big bad Barry though, like Alfie was after. It was a little common, didn't weigh it, it was probably about £10 or so, estimating it, but I was rather pleased because it enabled me to get Alfie involved, and the session really was all about getting Alfie involved, and in particular I wanted to get him used to handling the fish and seeing how we look after the fish, and we got to do that. Here's some footage of that now. Put your hands underneath Daddy's. Go on. Quick, he's not gonna... I've got him with you. I'll keep hold of him as well. That's it, hold him up. Hey, there we go. Here he is, look. And what do you reckon to that, folks? What do you reckon, Alfie?
Good.
Is it the biggest fish you've ever held? Yeah?
No.
No? Oh, why? What you caught?
You know when you caught that like swordfish?
Oh, right, okay.
That was the biggest one.
Okay then. Well, look at the camera then and say, let's slip Big Bad Barry back.
Let's slip Barry back. Oh, flip.
So yes, it was a rather tricky session. That was the only bite that we had, but you know, I don't feel like I was fishing as effective as I normally do anyway, and Alfie was a bit of a handful. I'll go as far as saying he was quite a bit of a pain in the bum, to be honest, and he got bored very quickly. But you know, it's all about planting the seed and getting them out there, and we did have some laughs as well. You know, just taking him out there, really. Not only am I in my element, but it's good to see him enjoying my grassroots, how I started fishing when I was a kid, and you know, all my kids, I like to get them involved. I don't force it upon them. Like Rylan, who I've got with me now, he's not so keen on the actual fishing side of things, but he loves the camping element of it. So if he's happy, I'm happy, and that's how we like to roll. And then moving on to last week, I was back down here and I was on Heron Lake again, not fishing this time. I was here for a tutorial. After all this COVID stuff, you know, it's been quite frustrating for me because I had to refund a lot of the tuitions which I had planned and rebook a lot of them as well. But they have kicked off now and we're back in full swing. And I had Chris with me for 24 hours. Now, I don't like to fish while I'm doing the tutorials. It is all about my clients, and you know, if anything, I want them to go away happy, and I want them to feel, you know, they've got my undivided attention 100%. And Chris in particular, you know, he went away very, very happy from the session, albeit without a fish, but you know, he really, really wanted to you know, look in depth on feeling the lead down and feature finding, and to be honest, you know, for the amount of time that Chris has been fishing, within 30-40 minutes, you know, and he was feeling that lead down, and he said, Paul, I just cannot believe the difference it's made. And we fished the pad swim, and to be honest, it was looking really good for a bite, but there was 3 other guys on the lake at the time, and nobody caught a fish whilst we was there. So it just indicates just how tricky it is fishing over there at the moment. But nonetheless, it was a really good session and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and Chris thoroughly enjoyed it as well, and I'm sure we'll be back there at some point to settle the score. But if anything, Chris has got a ways-in ticket, and he's gone there armed with a lot more knowledge and a lot more found confidence, which was what it's all about. So that just about brings us up to speed to this session, and it is looking really good, like I've mentioned. And you know, there's lots planned for this year. You know, this COVID, it really has you know, put a dampener on things, especially where I'm concerned. You know, I've actually changed waters and got a different ticket for this year, which incidentally starts next week. I won't be going next week, I've got another tutorial booked in for next week. But the following week after that, I am heading to my new syndicate, so stay tuned for that one. Some very, very big fish to go at in there. So that's about it from me for tonight. I'm going to get in my sleeping bag and just pray that one of them rods rips off in the night. I will go through the lake in a lot more detail tomorrow. You know, I'll give you all the information you need about this place for anybody that's you know, thinking about it or would like to inquire about the lake. I'll have all that information put across to you tomorrow, and hopefully with a few bigger fish to show you as well. But for now, it's good night from me, and it's good night from this little fella as well. He is still awake. I think he's just pretending. So yes, I shall be seeing you very soon. Well, good morning, and I'm feeling rather frustrated this morning. Things are not quite going to plan, let's put it that way. I'll kick it back to last night. I turned in just after I spoke to you guys, and it wasn't long afterwards and the left hand rod was away. An aborted take on that. By the time I got to the rod, it had stopped running. So that's the second time that's happened now. Anyway, I put that rod back out, and then about 2 o'clock this morning the middle rod was away, and I landed a small common on that rod. Not a big fish, it was around about £6, and I couldn't really be bothered doing the pictures and that, you know, with it being a small fish, so I just slipped in back. And then at first light this morning, it was around about 4:15 in the morning, the right hand rod absolutely melted off, and I was into a good battle on that with that fish. It even managed to get me stuck in the reeds. I managed to get him out the reeds, and then I was just about to net him and the hook pulled, but it didn't look like a big fish. It probably looked around about £15 or so. But again, you know, pretty gutted. Something's not quite right with the rigs, and I'm not very happy with the presentation. What I actually think's going on, I think that the fish, you know, they've got relatively soft mouths in here. They've not been caught much, and I think with me not dropping the lead, I think that's why they're getting away with it. Now, I've not got enough inline leads with me to be dropping them, so what I've done is I've switched all 3 rods over now. I've switched them onto leg clip systems. We'll touch on the rigs in more detail as we go on a bit. But what I am doing is I'm making 35mm mesh sticks, so it's very similar. Fishing the same spots, and we'll see if that makes a difference. I have started to change things on the hook baits as well. I've put that common come on a white hook bait, that come on the TX1 Tiger Nut, that did. And I've not long put a pineapple out, so we'll see how that fares. Tony did say to me that the lads have been doing quite well on yellow in here, so fingers crossed on that one. But as of yet, it's been very quiet this morning. It was like a sheet of glass out there when I first awoke, but there's a nice wind coming across now. It's going to remain overcast all day, and condition wise it looks really good, but the fish are just not showing themselves. They're not active. I think we're kind of looking forward to the afternoon time, you know, sort of late afternoon going into night. That's when things started to happen, you know, started to see a few fish show. But you know, I've been watching religiously this morning, and I've not seen many fish show at all. So, you know, it's not looking good, I'll be honest. It really isn't. It's not giving up them fish very easily, let's put it that way, and we're having to work at it. But you know, we shall persevere, and we'll touch on things in more detail. And not only that, we will talk about the lake in more detail. I think I'll leave that till the end of the video though, so stay tuned for that if you're interested in this lake. Hopefully in the meantime we can winkle a couple of more out. So yes, that is where we're up to. That is the state of play. I've made changes, let's see if it pays off. Well, good afternoon, and quite frustrating today has been. Since I lost that fish this morning, it has been really quiet. If I'm being honest, I didn't think I was going to get another bite, so I am quite relieved we've had this one. Another small fish, a nice scaly mirror, and he's just gone £13.10. And I'm happy to report that the change has worked as well. He was absolutely nailed, this fish. There was no chance that was coming off. The lead ejected, it was a real blistering take, and he did give a good account of himself, so pleased on that front. And I do think there's a few more bites left in it for this evening, through till tomorrow morning anyway. Let's see if we can materialise on it. I've just put out some more bait after having this fish, so fingers crossed. I tell you what, he is lovely. I don't care how big they are when they look like that. And you know, they're all like that in here. You know, they all come from the same stocking of fish. Apart from the original fish, there's two different types of stocking, but like I mentioned, I will go through that in more detail. But this is what you expect in here. Proper scaly bangers. And he is lovely, aren't you? Mwah. You'd think with the conditions that we've had today as well, the fish should have been showing themselves, but they really haven't been. It has been very quiet out there. But this last hour or so, I have started to see a few fish show. And I have been playing around with hook baits today. And this one come to the LM94, so it was a match the hatch. So, you know, I'm still going to stick with that. But I have got one yellow out at the moment, a TX1 banana and pineapple. And we'll see how we fare. But for now, let's slip this little fella back and see if we can make something else happen.
To think positively, no matter what's going on around me. I have a great life and will continue to have a great life. Every breath that I inhale, I am confident.
Well, as is often the case, long periods of no action at all, and then they come like buses. We've just had another one, and I'm pleased to say they're getting bigger. This one's just gone £17 on the dot, and he is another scaly banger. Absolutely peach perfect, this one. Apart from it looks like he's got a little spawning wound, which I'm going to treat. And this one come to the middle rod, and he was taken on the pineapple and banana, so it was worth persevering with that yellow. So needless to say, the yellow went straight back out there. And there you go, look, just check him out. Absolute banger. He is lovely, if I do say so myself. Yes. I topped back up with bait straight away as well, got it straight back out there. Another 5 spoms of bait. That seems to be what I'm doing at the moment, between 4 and 6 spoms of bait after every bite. And if I do have a period of time without any action, I'll just pop out another couple just to see if I can spur something on. But really, it is just reading the situation. and prepping for the night time ahead. You know, it doesn't hurt banging out a bit of extra bait, and we are getting through it now. And there you go, look, there's the other side. Right, I'm not going to waste any time because I need to get prepped up ready for tonight. I need to get some sticks made up, get some hook rigs made up as well, some fresh rigs, so in case we do get any action we can get straight back out there and we're not messing about. Right then, let's slip this fella back onto the next one. So good evening, and we are all set and ready now. We've not long had our tea. We had popcorn, chicken, chips and beans. It was absolutely lovely. We really have treated ourselves on this session. That's what it's all about when I've got Rylan with me. He's good company and I really enjoy him being with me. And he enjoys it as well, don't you? He likes the camping aspect of it rather than the actual fishing. I think I've already mentioned that, but you know, I love the company and it's great to see him enjoying it as well. Anyway, back to the fishing. It looks like that little flurry of action is long and truly done and dusted by now, but I am feeling rather positive of a few more bites tonight, especially if last night's anything to go by. And condition wise it's looking pretty good. We've still got a nice trickle of wind coming across the lake and it's a nice warm wind, and it is remaining overcast right through until tomorrow. And another thing as well, I am so pleased that we made that change. It's looking like it's worked. Them last two fish was absolutely nailed and they both ejected the lead. It looks like it's combated that problem. I'm so glad we switched over. I just think with the soft mouths that they've got and that 4-ounce lead bouncing around underneath, it just wasn't the one. I do believe that's why we had a couple of aborted takes, because they was using the lead, you know, shaking that lead around and just dropping the hook out before I had a chance to get on the rod. So yes, it's looking good on that front, and I will go through that rig in more detail in the morning. But everything is prepped up now. I've got a couple of more rigs sorted. The mesh sticks are all ready to go, and I will rebait after having any bites through the night as well. It's worth doing that. You've got to put the effort in on here. You can have some really good hits of fish if you put the effort in on here, and you know, from when you see the fish swimming around in the edges, what Tony's told me, they don't swim on their own. You know, they're usually within groups of 10 to 20 fish at a time, so they move in and clear you out, and it's not unheard of to get multiple bites at the same time. You know, sort of the average sort of catch at the moment is sort of between, you know, roughly 5 fish a night, and if you get it right, you know, you can be having like 10 fish in one night on here. There's been some good hits so far, and if you get it right and the fish are on you, you know, you can easily have 20 fish a session, let's put it that way. And you know, them fish have hungry fish and they're growing fish, and they are growing very quickly as well. And usually in the mix with them, you know, you've got a good couple of 20s in the mix. And they're coming through all the time in here. You know, it'll not be long before the simmos that are in here will be 30-pounders. They're the ones that are coming through into like the 22s and the 24s at the moment. But the one thing you can expect with this water is they are all absolutely scaly bangers. You just cannot fault a nice scaly looking mirror. You know, them big apple slices, and they're all unique. That's what I love about mirrors. I do prefer mirrors to commons, if I'm being honest. And that's just because each one's so different. Commons can tend to look, you know, very similar to one another, whereas mirrors, it's like they've got their own little personality just from the way they look. And you totally get that in here. They all look different, they've all got different scale patterns. and here's a couple of strains in here, and I am going to leave that till the end of the video to talk about that, because not everybody is going to be interested in this. It is an up and coming water, but it's not going to be long before they're all chunks, and my predictions is this water is going to take over Heron, just because of the way it is. It's open, it's windswept, it's deep, there's lots of naturals out there, and the way these fish are gaining weight, it's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They have gained weight a lot quicker than the fish that are in Heron, let's put it that way. But yes, as promised, till the end of the video and I shall give you all the information. We'll have a rig talk in the morning, but in the meantime, before then, fingers crossed that them rods are dancing and them bobbins are hitting them rods. So yes, I shall be speaking to you very soon. Well, it seems to be a bit of a theme at the moment. We sit there for hours and hours without a bite and then absolute carnage. We've got 3 fish this morning. Both nets are full and one in the retainer, and the one in the retainer is quite a special fish, as is this one. Tony put 3 of these fish in here, 3 fully scaled, and we've got one of them. And there we go, look, just look at the scales on that. Imagine him when he's a lot bigger and them scales start to spread out. He is going to be one to look out for in the future. An absolute banger. And there we go, look. He likes the LM94, this one. He's actually shitting it on the mat as we speak. He's a little fella still. He's just gone £10 4 ounce, I believe it was, £10 4. Anyway, that's irrelevant when they look like this. Let's slip him back and on to the next one. Mwah. And here we go then, the second of this morning's action, and just check the scales out on that. That is one thing you can say about all these fish in here. They are absolute scaly bangers, and that's why we love coming here. And it's nice to get my son involved as well, Rylan. He's enjoying his time here. Although he doesn't like the fishing, he is enjoying himself. And he has said to me on a few occasions, "Dad, them fish are right nice compared to what you normally catch." I don't know what he's talking about really. I don't just go for big fat ugly simmos. And there's the other side. Absolutely perfect. Anyway, I've got a better prize to show you next. So let's get him put back. Mwah. And here we go then, the best till last. And I'm not bothered if the rod doesn't go again, because we've got what we come for. We've got a 20. And he has been eating the pies, this one. Just look at the belly on that. He's made my trip. That's 9 fish so far. Maybe we might make 10 before we go home, but I'm not holding my breath. And I am more than happy with how this session's gone. It's not been easy, we've had to work hard for it. And you know, being prepped for them key windows, that's been the key to this session, because all the bites have come around about at the same time, sort of last knock-ins and early morning. So having everything prepped and ready, having the bait out there, you know, so when them fish move in, they don't clear you out and you can get a couple of bites before they move off. So yes, let's slip him back and we shall have a catch up before we go. Well, what a manic morning that was, and I wish every morning could start like that, let me tell you. However, I do think it's deserved, you know. We've had to work hard for the bites, they've not given themselves up easily. And like I mentioned, you know, it's just them key little windows at the moment where the bites seem to come. They seem to be swimming about in packs, and you seem to, once you've got one bite, you get another bite. Or at least that's how it seems, definitely at the moment. Now if we cast my mind back to last night, you know, I did go to bed feeling rather positive. I did feel like something was going to happen. So when I awoke this morning, nothing had happened. I was quite disappointed, especially with the conditions. Like I mentioned, we've had a nice breeze blowing across the lake all night, and it's been overcast with a little bit of drizzle, and it's been quite warm, to be honest. Everything that you want for this time of year. But looking out across the lake, I didn't see much out there. I've seen the odd fish and no particular area where there was sort of showing or anything like that. It was just the odd fish here and there. So I was feeling rather disappointed, let's put it that way. But then no sooner as, you know, that passed, the right hand rod was away first, and then the left hand rod, and then the middle rod, and I suppose really there was probably about 10-15 minutes between each bite. So it did seem like a group of fish had moved in, because I'm fishing different spots on all three rods, you know, and it's like they went from one to the other, or at least that's the way it seems anyway. And because I'm baiting up after every bite, I am religiously doing that. I don't want to pump out a lot of bait, because I feel if I put a lot of bait out there, I'm just going to be prolonging the bite coming. So definitely the key to this session has been feeding to the bites, and I've been putting between 4 and 6 bombs out there, you know, just sort of assessing it. I've not been going too mad, but religiously I'll get the bite, I'll bait up, I'll put the rod back out, and then on to the next one. But as it fell this morning, you know, it just turns out that I had one in that net, one in that net, one in the retainer, you know, and if I was to carry on catching, I don't know what would have happened. I think I'd have had to go in the old lockbox and get more nets and mats out, but luckily, you know, that's the way it's turned out, and I'm quite pleased about it, let's put it that way. It's made a nice finish to the session. But not only that, if I go back to the first night, I do believe, you know, I started off all wrong. Not that the solid bags are wrong or anything like that, but the way I was presenting it, you know, fishing at them little stems and not dropping the lead. You know, I wasn't to know that I was going to start dropping fish, let's put it that way. I've got a lot of confidence, but usually I fish it drop-off style. But because I thought I was going to be getting a lot of bites, I didn't really want to be dropping that many leads. So, you know, that was why I took the approach what I did. But it soon become apparent after a couple of aborted takes that I needed to make a change. And the rig that I changed to, I mean, the biggest change of all was changing to a lead clip system. And then the rig which I went in with, it's a pop-up rig. It does sort of imitate the way I was fishing it inside the solid bag, the way that the hook bait pops up and that. But I've gone over to a combi rig. The boom section of that is £20 fluorocarbon, that's Ridge Monkey fluorocarbon, and then the supple bit that at the bottom there, that's the PB product silk wire, and I've attached them two together with an Albury knot, and with that knot being there, it's allowed me to put a good sized bit of putty there, so it is overweighted, so that bit drops down and then it sits up like a claw like that. And then the other change is I went up a size on the hook. That there is a size 5 Nash pinpoint claw, and because it's quite a short shank hook, that I have put a little shrink kicker on there just so it extends that hook. You know, I do think that helps with the hooking potential of this. And since switching over to this, you know, every single fish has been nailed, and this particular rig and the other two that I've got out there at the moment, they're 7 inches long. So, you know, I've gone from 4 inches to 7 inches. It's not a big change, but it's made all the difference. The fish that I've had since swapping to this, they've been you know, they've not been hooked on the edge of the lip or anything. They've been a good inch back in the mouth, and they've been absolutely nailed. So, you know, I believe it's turned the session around, because I think if I was to carry on fishing the way I was going, you know, it could have quite have easily been a couple of aborted takes or a lost fish. And who knows, you never know, that first night, if I'd have gone in with that to begin with, it might have been a different story. I might have had 12, 13 fish by now. You just never know. Well, it would be nice to make it to 10 fish before we go home, but I can't see it happening. I really can't at the moment. Just looking across the lake, the fish are not active like you'd expect them to be. I am seeing the odd one here and there, but, you know, nothing that warrants, you know, they're having a bit of a feed up or anything like that. And since that last fish, it has gone rather quiet. But still, the rods are out there, and we're going to have a slow pack down. And next up, we're going to have a good talk about the lake in more detail and the stock that's in here. Well, here we go then. I really wasn't expecting this fish. I was actually talking to the camera about the lake at the time, which I'm gonna have to re-record because I can't remember what I said. But this little fella's just pulled the scales round to £13 one and another little scaly, and that makes 10 fish for the session. And I do believe this is definitely going to be the last fish, unless they rip off before I manage to record that piece and pack up, that is. And there's the other side, look. Great way to end the session if we don't get another one before we pack up. And another one on the scoreboard. 10 fish, we can't grumble at that. There's some good fishing to be had in this lake. Anyway, I'm waffling on. I'm going to slip this little fella back, and then we'll have a proper catch up, and then I'm going to pack up. Well, long overdue, but it's that time to talk about the lake in more detail. So, Albury Lake, it's 9 acres in size, and it is very open and windswept, this place. Being right in the centre of the racecourse, you know, it does see a lot of good winds on here. It's not tree lined or anything like that, and it can feel quite exposed at times. But that said, it makes it very good on the fishing front, that does. You know, there's always a good turnover of water, and the oxygen levels are always high in here because it's open and windswept. I mean, you know, a lot of lakes struggle in the summer months, especially if they're tree lined and they're very weedy. You know, it can make the fishing very tricky, but not in here. If anything, you know, the way it's set up very, very good in my opinion, and I predict there's going to be some big fish in here in years to come. Now, you'll notice if you have a look at the contour map, there's a very good body of water out there, and it's sort of an average of around 20 foot deep, and there is areas that goes down into 30 and 38 foot. But as well, you'll notice there's not a lot feature wise out there. It's quite uniform, it's gradual ups and downs, and the bottom that's out there, it's predominantly clay bottom. There is a lot of gravel out there, and there is areas of the lake that is weedy. There's a lot of Canadian, but that's mostly where it comes up into the shallow water. Out in the main bowl of water, it's very clear and it's very easy fishing. You know, it makes the margins a very good feature to fish to. I mean, not only that, the way Tony feeds the fish, or he has done for the past couple of years anyway, he's just been going round with a scoop and a bucket and just piling it in as he's walking round. So, you know, them fish are quite conditioned to that at the moment, and it seems like, you know, all the fish are coming out the margins at the moment. Now, going back a couple of years ago when Tony acquired this lake, he stocked it with 275 carp in total, and they all went in at 3 summers old. They all went in at sea freeze, which is sort of around 6 pound in weight, and the fish that you're seeing me catch between 10 and 14 pound, they come from the Isle of Wight, and the bigger fish that are in here at the moment are the simmos, what he put in as well. I don't know the numbers of what he put on of each different type, but he put simmos and then he put some Isle of Wight fish in, and the simmos are averaging between 17 and 24 pound at the moment. And you know, they've only been in here a couple of years, and that growth rate is phenomenal. It's not going to be long at all before it's a big fish water, this. And not only that, with it being so big and windswept and the depths and the water quality, it's just going to go from strength to strength, this place. Them fish really are phenomenal, and I find it quite hard to distinguish between the two, because even the simmos are nice, lovely looking scalies. And not only that, he did put one target fish in here as well, and rather than buy a target fish, what he did is he caught one of the originals out of Heron Lake and he put it in here, and that went in at 27 pound, and who knows how big that fish is now. It's definitely going to be over 30 pound at the moment, but until somebody catches it, we won't know that. And he has named that fish Albury, so it has got a target fish already, and the fish really are coming through. Next year, you know, some of them simmos are going to be 30 pound, and it's a relatively cheap ticket on here. It's 500 pound for the year, and there is still tickets available if you want some. What I'll do, in the description box below, there'll be the link for the Facebook page to contact Tony, and not only that, there'll be his phone number as well, so you can phone him direct. I'm not sure how many places he's got left on here, but there's definitely a few to fill, let's put it that way, and there's midweek and weekend available. Oh yes, and another thing which I forgot to mention is there is other species of fish in here as well. We don't really know, to be honest. I mean, we know that there's tension here, we know that there's perch in here. The one thing that we do know that's in here in abundance is pike. Tony is allowing pike fishing on here, and that starts from October and runs through the winter. He had some guys on the winter that's just gone, and to be honest, the catch rates that them guys was having was phenomenal. They was averaging around about 5 pike a night, nothing massive. I think the biggest pike that's been out so far is £17, but I'm sure you'll agree that's some good action, so there must be quite a lot of pike out there. And there is a few trout as well. There's been the odd trout spotted swimming about out there, so it really is a bit of an unknown. And so far no original carp have been caught, so it is a bit of a mystery. There could be or couldn't be. I know Tony did do a little bit of underwater footage in here, and he did clock a carp that wasn't any of his stocked fish, so there is something in here, but as of yet we don't actually know, so it's pointless me saying there is when we really don't know. But that is what we do know, and it is looking very, very promising for the future, this place. It's certainly one for the future, I will add. I mean, if you like fishing for scaly bangers, it's a place for you, and not only that, in a few years time you're going to be fishing for a lot of big fish, and not only that, beautiful big fish. You know, it's hard to come by fish like that these days, and Tony's purposely built this like that. And a lot of the fish as well, he went up to the Isle of Wight and hand-picked a lot of them, even them little fully scales and that. He went up and hand-picked around 10 fish or so. He put some in herring and he put some in here, so you know there is always going to be some really nice fish coming through, and he does plan to keep on stocking it, you know, as the years go on. You know, just a couple of fish every single year, just to keep that stock building up, and so there's always fish coming through. Tony really knows what he's doing on the old fishery management side of things, and he's done a very good job on these lakes. So yes, that just about wraps it up. That is Albury Lake. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and there's one last thing before we go. Rylan, come here, I want to speak to you. Before we started fishing, I told you to pay the lake. What did you actually wish for?
Lots of fish.
Lots of fish. Did you wish for any big uns?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we kind of have then. It's kind of come true, that. I mean, 10 fish, that's a good session in my opinion. And we've had a 20-pounder as well. So all in all, it's been thoroughly enjoyable. Have you enjoyed it, Rylan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to come again? To this lake?
Yeah.
And are you going to fish next time instead of just me? I still can't get him to pick that fishing rod up, but I am pleased that he likes to come. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you like this kind of thing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you are interested in the lake, the link's in the description below. Thank you very much for watching.